Today's guest, Jason Benedict, runs the Automation Agency, an award-winning marketing agency that helps small businesses to grow revenue, expand clientele, enhance productivity, increase sales, and enjoy more freedom from their business by automating their sales and marketing while maintaining growth within their business. Please welcome Jason to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to talk to you today because who doesn't love automation? Or if they don't love it yet, they know they need it, but don't know how to make it work, right?
100%. Yep.
Yeah.
Automation is amazing. I mean, it's the backbone to our business, and we literally coach, train, and onboard about 100 small businesses every month with automation and using a platform which is called Keep, and Infusionsoft is, you know it, it's a platform that you use. And so, yeah, we're a Keep certified partner. We are automation evangelists. We love it. We use it. We eat, sleep, and drink and breathe it.
I love that. That is like the best way to describe it because I love Keep too. There is so much more that it probably could be doing for our business. And I know that probably a lot of small business owners, if they aren't currently using an automation system, there's probably so many things that Keep could do to help them. So let's talk first about what developed your interest in helping small businesses to grow through automation.
Well, first I was working at a small business, right? I was employed by another business that was leveraging and using this technology. And when I first started using it, I was like blown away by what the capacity was and the capabilities of it. And so I ended up getting certified in the software, and that business that I was working in, literally within about a 3 to 6 month time span, they went from about 300 members to 900 members just by simply me adding in automation. And I was automating webinars, I was automating follow-up, I was automating their lead generation. And so when I realized what I could do within one business, I recognized there was an opportunity for me to do that for so many other small businesses. And so my wife was like, it's time for us to start our own small business. And so my wife, Teresa, and I co-founded the Automation Agency in 2014. And we literally have just excelled, from start to finish. Like the first couple of years, this is something most businesses have to understand, is it's not going to go, the first couple of years is going to be a little difficult, right? Anytime you're starting something, you got to get your feet underneath you. You're used to being kind of employed by somebody else. But literally after the few years, like our business just started to catapult and grow exponentially over time. And the last 3 years alone, where most businesses were struggling during COVID, ours grew 230% by drinking our own Kool-Aid, using our own tactics and strategy, and using automation.
Well, I'm so glad that you brought that up because I think that, at least from my perspective, I feel like COVID really gave me an opportunity to dig into my systems and be like, okay, first of all, what am I using? What am I not using? But also, too, what could I be using Keep for? Because there's so much that it can do. And really just having that amount of time to really dig into that with my team and say, okay, what else can we use this for? How can we make our lives easier? We have a unique opportunity right now to dig into this. We rarely get this amount of free time. Like, let's figure out what we're doing here and make sure that we're utilizing it to its full potential. And I know you mentioned that there was a couple things that you helped automate with, but what are some other things that maybe people don't think of when they think about automation?
Yeah. So the first thing that I would say, the most important thing, is there's really three categories that every business needs to do in order to be successful. You have to be able to collect leads, you have to be able to convert clients, and you have to be able to create repeat business and create fans, right? So we've created what we call the C3 framework. And that framework is about designing a customer journey that creates a frictionless process. So from the moment that somebody comes in contact with you from your website, they're getting a nice welcome email. Maybe it's a personal video from you. There's ways. I think the biggest myth that people think is when you start using automation, you think that you take away the human element that's involved. And what we do at the Automation Agency is we ensure that we build the right amount of touch points and decision points. Decision points is another key thing, is when people come and contact you, you need to get them to start making decisions. Do I want to work with them or not? That's a decision. Do I want to opt in? That's another decision point that they make. And the more decision points that they make and they have encounters and engagement with your brand, the more likely they are to buy from you. And if you're just trying to do everything manually, you're missing out on so many opportunities to have touch points and decision points and to build, automation using your own personal brand and your messaging to really clarify your message and help them to understand what they're getting from you, what the value is that your service or product provides.
I'm so glad that you brought that up because I really think the client journey is something that we as small business owners miss, especially if you have like a brick and mortar business. Because if people are coming to your business for an appointment, we need to show them a video of, hey, this is what the drive up looks like. Hey, this is what the front of my office, maybe walk in the door, show them a little bit of about what your office looks like. Such easy things that we can do that we never think of, but can make a huge difference. Because like you said, the faster we can get people making decisions, the better, because then that leads into the decisions that ultimately make us money.
Yeah.
Now, what are other challenges that you've seen? Because I know you work with a ton of businesses. So what are some other challenges that you've seen that you're like, oh, we can definitely fix this with automation?
So because we work with so many different verticals and industries, we see a lot of them. But honestly, I think the biggest mistake that we see people make and business owners make is they forget to outline and like flow chart and diagram their entire sales process, right? Most businesses just kind of go out there, they throw mud on the wall and they see how long it sticks. And they realize, well, that didn't work well, so let's try and throw it in a different direction. And so one of the services that we provide is what we call a flow chart and funnel diagram service. And what that does is that helps businesses to uncover the hidden gaps, the growth gaps that sit and are literally holding them back. Sometimes it's the smallest thing, that there's a gap between, where an appointment gets booked and their salesperson isn't following up, or the salesperson follows up, but then doesn't take the next steps and get them through the right amount of decision points that they need to make. And so we basically will go through and uncover the entire sales process for every business. And when we design automation, we start there first, because most businesses are trying to go out there and they're trying to advertise and they don't have a CRM and they don't have automation. So they may be bringing in leads, but they're losing them out the back end because they haven't followed up with them enough. And I would say follow-up is probably the biggest challenge that most businesses face, is they don't do enough follow-up. And that's what automation solves.
Oh, I'm glad that you said that, because I feel like that's something that happens, especially as we get busier, right? We have more clients, we're like missing the gap in following up with people. And I don't know what like the statistic is, but isn't it like 6 or 8 times that you follow up with somebody before they ultimately buy? I mean, it's a crazy number when you think about it, when most of us are just, touching once or twice and then we move on to the next because we're just so busy. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think that's huge. But also too, you probably help these companies refine their sales process, because when you're going through that and saying, okay, now what next? Now what next? It really forces us as business owners to say, well, gosh, there's that massive gap there that people are literally falling through the hole, and off they go. And that's potential sales that are lost.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what? It's interesting is that number has actually increased to about 7 or 18 touch points now, to where people have to have that many touch points. I mean, it's just the market is so, convoluted, and just you see so many advertisements per day that your brain just can't retain it, right? And so you have to have that consistent brand presence, that follow-up. And so we typically will break down touch points at each stage and section of their sales process, right? Because sometimes that process changes hands. It goes from one person to the next. And now your message and, the clarity of what you're trying to explain to them it sometimes will change from person to person. So having an outlined sales flow chart and funnel diagram really helps their entire business, all of the team members, to understand from step to step what's happening. And it also helps new customers too. Like when you think about from an onboarding perspective, when you can visually represent what you're going to take them through, they have so much clarity that, the confused mind says no, right? So if your customer's confused, they're not going to buy from you. But when you present them with clarity and you show them a process of what that looks like for you, you have a much better chance of converting them into a client.
Well, and it would also eliminate the confusion, which means they would be less likely to call you and ask questions, where if you can just show them right off the bat, hey, here's the timeline, here's the steps we're going to go through. And then when they look at that email, they're like, oh, I'm right where I'm supposed to be. No worries. It's going to take another 3 days for X, Y, and Z to happen. I really like the idea of outlining it for people, because I feel like there's so many different things that we deal with every day that you're right. We get confused and we're like, wait, I haven't heard from so-and-so in a couple days. Was I supposed to do something? And so having that timeline mapped out is probably helps out so much. And I
Yeah.
know you mentioned too in the beginning about growth results. And I would love to talk about that because doing all this automation stuff is a lot of work. I mean, there's no doubt about that. You've got to record the videos, you've got to get the process mapped out. There's a lot that is involved in it. But let's talk about those growth numbers because really, not only does it reduce our stress levels, probably, but also helps our business grow.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can speak on that in a couple of different directions. Like, so client results is one thing, right? Like we have clients that we've worked with in liposuction where in a matter of a week's time, we were able to generate $150,000 in booked procedures for them. And what was interesting is we didn't have to do any new lead gen. We weren't doing new advertising to them. We helped them to uncover and understand where the segmentation needed to be inside of their database. So when people get, like I say, like when a new lead comes in, that's one segment, right? Those who have been, spoken to and booked consultation, that's another segment. People who have booked a consultation but haven't purchased, that's another segment. So that third segment of how we identified to go to market and message them spoke to them in a way where they were the most hottest prospect for this business. So we literally took about 1,500 contacts out of their database and promoted to those specifically to buy a procedure, a liposuction procedure. In a matter of 7 days, we generated $150,000 in sales for that business. And we have other clients like in the pharmacy space that we've done too, where I love getting emails from clients and they're like, Jason, we just broke a 6-year record. We had a 100K jump in revenue this month. And it's like, those are the types of emails that you live and breathe for, right? Is at the end of the day, my wife and I created this agency because we wanted to make an impact for small businesses. We wanted to make an impact in people's lives. And being able to do that through doing something that we love, which is automation and working with them through small business, it's just a passion and a purpose for us.
Well, and I think too, as small business owners, we forget that those clients that we already have that we worked so hard to get could potentially want to buy something else from us. And if we're not fishing in our own pond, they might not know what they need until we tell them. Now, I'm glad that you brought up about the plastic surgery.
Sure.
Because is there a certain type of business or a certain amount of growth that you have to be at, or your business has to be so big before you can start automation? Or do you think it's anywhere at in the business?
Yeah, 100%. So it's honestly, you could be a startup. We worked with solopreneurs and entrepreneurs that literally started with automation. And what we've done is we've created what we call an ascension plan for small businesses, because not every business has a budget to do certain things in there, and they shouldn't be, right? Like as a startup, you have to watch every penny. You have to be mindful of what you're doing. And so we help them to uncover and identify what are the tactics and strategies they should be doing in their business. What types of automation should they be doing? If they don't have a list and they don't have anybody to market to, then they should be thinking about guerrilla marketing and collecting leads. So we might be focused on developing a landing page that has some automation behind it, maybe creating some sort of ebook or a lead magnet that attracts that lead to them and then ultimately, drives them to book an appointment. So literally any business, no matter what stage you're at in terms of revenue or growth, you should be using automation, because at the end of the day, you're either sacrificing your personal time to do manual tasks or you're automating them and becoming more efficient. And when you're more efficient, that means you have more margin growth in your business. And so we typically tell small businesses there's 3 things that we can help them to do. When we implement automation, the output that you're going to get is you're going to get more sales growth, you're going to get more margin growth, and you're going to get more value growth. Value growth is obviously, in your future, you want to sell their business. Some businesses do, some business owners don't. But at the end of the day, you're creating value in your business every time you invest in automation. And so that's where the efficiency comes in, and where automation can literally help any size business, no matter whether they're a startup or, a seasoned, mature business.
Well, we've talked about so many different things that we could automate within Keep, but let's talk about something that maybe people don't think that you can automate through Keep, which is using LinkedIn, like social media, like that kind of stuff, because you're able to automate certain processes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a LinkedIn automation solution. So for some businesses who say, hey, look, Facebook is not the right platform, TikTok is not the right platform. It's all based on the demographic, right? And so what we did is we designed an automation solution that takes away the manual steps. What we found is that most people spend on average about 1 to 2 hours a day trying to make connections with the right audience and the right people. So we took that piece out and we automated it to where we actually can send out 100 connection requests per week to that target desired demographic. So literally removing that 1 or 2 hours a day now gives them the freedom to go back and start working on building the relationships with their other customers, with their existing customers. And it then brings in the ability for them to start connecting with new ones. But we didn't stop there with just the connection automation. We then also built out automated notifications that happen thereafter. We actually call it with the BEAT method, which stands for build, engage, educate, and promote. And so we've created this automation that takes people through a LinkedIn relationship, because LinkedIn is very relational, right? Everything is based on relationships and communication. And so what we've devised is basically the right amount of human interaction and the right amount of touch points that are automated that drive them to certain books or articles that they've written, or if they're promoting a webinar, they want to drive people into that webinar. Like, you don't have to do those things manually. You can do that through automation. So it's about identifying where are they spending most of their time, what are the things they don't like doing, and let's automate the rest.
I love, what's so great about that is, as a business owner, like, you're supposed to be on social media, you're supposed to be all the places, but it can be so overwhelming. And it's like, to be able to automate some of that would be like huge. And I know there's probably so many people out here that are like, oh my gosh, I know I need to be on social media, I know I need to be doing all these things, but I'm only one person, or I'm only a team, a small team that doesn't have the bandwidth to do that right now. So being able to automate that, complete game changer.
Yeah. Now, okay. I was just going to say, our clients love it for the fact that, because it's not just about lead gen too. It's also like they can use LinkedIn from a recruiting process, right? Like, we work with loan officers that want to get in front of more real estate agents. So we actually connect them through automation with more real estate agents in their local area. And we do it all through automation. So it's about identifying what their goal is and what their need is. And then how do we leverage our tool and LinkedIn technology to either generate leads, build relationships, or, help them to convert more relationships at the end of the day.
You can really use automation for whatever it is you need.
No.
Depending on whatever business you are, because I know there's a lot of businesses that I work with that are like, oh, social media is not for me, my people aren't on there. And I'm like, everybody's on social media, like, whether they admit it or not. Like you said earlier, like, maybe Facebook's not the place for you, but you're probably on Instagram or some other place. Your clients are out there somewhere, and if you can find them and automate that process, oh my gosh, that could be a massive game changer. Now, where can people find the C3 quiz? Because I think that's kind of a good place to start, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I talked about the C3 framework of helping businesses to uncover the hidden growth gaps that sit within their business. And so we created what we call the C3 quiz, and it's going to help them to identify whether they need to collect more leads, convert more clients, or create more fans. And so they can go to c3quiz.com. It's a 3-minute quiz. Literally, you'll get the details and the analysis and the results of the quiz immediately. And then from there, it actually gives you a plan of how to fix what's broken or what's missing in your business. So definitely C3 quiz is a great place to start and to get some ideas of where you can fix your broken marketing system.
I love that. And find out where your gaps are too. If you're already working with an automation or some sort of integration, something like that, you can identify those gaps that might be there. Because listen, we've all got those automated emails from people where they don't have the exit strategy, and you're just like stuck in this endless loop of getting all these emails, and you're like, okay, enough already. And then you hit unsubscribe, and it's like, no, we don't want that. Especially if it's our business, we've got to make sure that we have everything in place, so that way people don't get annoyed with us. Because I feel like that's probably the most common complaint that people have with automation. Is there anything else that you hear people say about automation that you're like, oh, we can totally get that fixed?
Yeah, 100%. Even what you just referenced too, right? Is like frequency plays a big factor in marketing, right? And knowing the timing of when to send messages. That's another core thing that we do at the automation agency, is we help businesses to identify what's too soon, how many emails you should send. And when emails aren't the right fit, you need to go to other channels like SMS or voicemail drops, or think about direct mail. A lot of people are overlooking direct mail, and direct mail is still a great channel for catching people offline, especially during COVID when people were at home and they're like checking their mail and, actually sifting through the mail, looking for stuff because they're so bored, or, that was a great opportunity to connect, and it still is. So it's about understanding and identifying your audience, knowing where they're at, like you said, right? What social channels, what target demographic are you trying to reach? Having a really clear message also plays a big factor, right? Not trying to do too many things at once. I see a lot of businesses trying to have like 3 or 4 calls to action in a single email, and you're losing them. You have to focus on one call to action and drive them to the next step. Once they get to that next step, now you have another call to action that you're driving them to. So if the first one is, let's get you on a call and get an appointment booked, let's do that. If the next one is to do a follow-up call, then you have to have automation and follow-up in place to help them, to walk them through that customer journey, hold their hand, and give them this amazing experience that doesn't make them feel like, I want to opt out of this relationship.
There's so many amazing things that we talked about, and I'll be sure to link that quiz in the show notes so everybody can find it, because I think it's important, no matter what stage of business that you're in, that you look at automation, because the sooner you do it, the better. But this is a question that I ask every single business owner, and it might be something that we've already talked about, but I want to ask it specifically to you, is what is one piece of advice that you would give to a small business owner?
First and foremost, trust in yourself and invest in yourself. I think if you invest in yourself, and if that's a small form of investment of building automation into certain parts of your business, that's a form of investment that's going to pay off dividends and ROI, because you're going to start getting some time back. One of the biggest things that I think most businesses face, small businesses specifically, is they miss time with family. They miss events because they're trying to, run the rat race. They're in this hamster wheel. They feel like they can't get out of it. But there is solutions. There's a whole community of small business owners that we work with that literally have built automation into their business, and they now have that time back. And so I think the biggest piece of advice is start small, invest in yourself, trust in yourself, and you will see success and results.
I love that. I will be the first one to say, when I first started with Keep, I was like, I got this. I can do this myself. And then I was like, uh-oh, I don't got this. I need some help. And so making sure that you're reaching out to people that know what they're doing with this kind of stuff, even though there's a cost involved, can save you so much time, stress, and mental energy, because this stuff is confusing. So if you're someone like me who's just like, I don't get this stuff, I don't have the brain set up for this, then make sure that you reach out to Jason, because he can help you with that, and make sure that your business is running at its optimal speed, because that's what we need these days, is to make sure that we're maximizing our time so we can spend it with our family and our relationships that are so important, that, you're right, sometimes get lost when we are building our businesses.
100%. Our time is so valuable, and the best time spent is time spent investing in you and your family and the things that you love to do. And you can automate the rest.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I really appreciate it. I know that there's so many amazing things that we talked about today, but I really think the through line is that you've just got to start the conversation about automation.
100%. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.